Hey everybody, and welcome to another Tausken review. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game called Deponia the Complete Collection. The Complete Collection is the first 3 Deponia games stuck together, so it's a pretty lengthy endeavor altogether at like 30 to 40 plus hours of content. Deponia follows the story of Rufus, a man or man-child who wants to make it to Elysium, a city in the sky. I say man-child because Rufus is not the most mature character in the world. He's crass, rude, and oftentimes stupid. This makes Rufus, though, an interesting character, but flawed, which is fun. Right off the bat, we begin with Rufus on another one of his crazy attempts to get to Elysium, as everyone else in town writes him off as another batshit crazy, insane Rufus lunatic idea. It's this conflict that forms the center of Deponia, Rufus and his desire to get to Elysium at any cost. Oftentimes, Rufus will need to exploit others or ruin things for his friends and neighbors to get what he wants. The story generally plays this off in a funny and goofy, charming way. It's got a very great cast of characters that are all likable. Each character is wonderfully animated with gorgeous cartoony style and fantastic voice acting. Deponia is really a game that has just incredible production values. It's clear they spent a ton of money on this and they put their hearts into it. At its core, the story is fairly simple, and that really helps to elevate the game, being entirely about Rufus and his journey to get to Elysium, or his interactions with Goal. Towards the third game, it did feel like the developers tried to expand the writing, and story did begin to suffer as a result, because they try and expand the game's scope a bit too much in ways with these large twists and exposition dumps that felt a bit unnecessary. It also feels like Rufus goes from being a goofy, stupid, rude, and crass character to just plain despicable. In the first 2 games, Rufus does some pretty messed up stuff, but it's all done in a lighthearted, fun, comedic way. In the third game, it takes some wild turns. It begins to feel like a complete character shift for Rufus. Oftentimes, the writing just kind of gets a little bit weird and sometimes dips into areas that could be sometimes taken a bit to be racist or just strange. Like, there's some areas in the game I don't really want to get into for spoilers, but just don't jive particularly well in the third part of the game. Overall, though, aside from those blemishes, most of the writing is fantastic, especially in the first 2 games. Being a point-and-click game, you're obviously going to run into a lot of puzzles, and Deponia is filled with them. Many of them are quite well thought out, but this game does dip into that Monkey Island level harebrained puzzle that just makes you want to rip your hair out. Sometimes you'll be sitting there just sheer figuring out through brute force because there's no other way to figure it out. This can make some areas of the game feel a bit frustrating, but if you love that challenging aspect of, say, like games like Monkey Island and others of that old school adventure game nature that have really difficult puzzles, you're going to love that. Oftentimes, Deponia will give you multiple puzzles to work on at the same time, all working in conjunction to each other, which is pretty great because it means that if you get stuck on one, you can bounce to another and then bounce back to the other one later. I mentioned presentation before, but I really need to compliment Deponia's presentation again. Everything, from the graphics to the sound, is well done and helps to immerse you in the world. It's got a great soundtrack as well. Each section even has its own little song and cinematic that it plays beforehand and after that really helps to kind of wrap things up and move them forward. It's just got a really good look to it and feel to it that really brings you into the game. Overall, Deponia the Complete Collection is a great point and click that gets an 8 out of 10. It's got an incredible amount of content here with 30 to 40 plus hours of gameplay here. The characters and writing are generally great, but I feel like towards the third game, things begin to take a bit of a nosedive. People often criticize the ending. While I do find it a bit strange, I didn't really find that to be the problem. What did bother me was how Rufus changed completely from the first and second games to become this ridiculous character. In the third game, they also turn a lot of crass jokes that for some will just feel sadistic and racist that really just fall flat on their face and don't really mesh well with the game. They also dip into a lot of trash jokes, or things like toilet humor that just don't really feel like they fit really well with this game. Despite the third game, Deponia the Complete Collection is still a wonderful series of games. The puzzles are fun, the presentation is great, and I would still highly recommend playing this game if you are remotely interested in point-and-click adventures. And so, it gets an 8 out of 10. Very well, awesome done game. That's just a bit held back by its lackluster third game.